What would it mean for you to know that the universe, God, Allah, whoever or whatever it is that you believe in, was biased in your favor? What would it mean for you to know that as long as you just kept moving forward, things were biased to work out for you? How much confidence do you think that this would give you? And what would this confidence do for you? Would you take more action towards your goals? Would you take more risk towards your dreams? Albert Einstein once said, "The most important decision we make is whether we believe we live in a friendly or a hostile universe." Every single thing that we believe about the world shapes every single decision that we take, whether we are aware of it or not, which shapes our entire reality. So I want to tell you about a time where I felt like I lived in a hostile universe. 6 years ago, I started struggling with an eating disorder. This was the first time in my life where I felt absolutely out of control and like life was out to get me. And at first, it wasn't unhealthy. At first, I just wanted to lose a little bit of weight. But slowly, I started to become obsessed with it. In my mind, my value and my worthiness came from my ability to restrict my eating and to be thin. And when I wouldn't follow these food rules I set for myself, I kept shaming myself. I kept telling myself, "Anna, once you lose 10 more pounds, then you'll be happy. Once you lose 10 more pounds, then you can finally relax." But even when I did lose the weight, I still wasn't happy. I kept comparing my body to someone else's, how much food I was eating to someone else's plate of food. I was so miserable. I even had people tell me that I looked too thin, but I didn't believe them. I simply thought that they were jealous of me because I had more self-control than they did. I reached this point where my mind was consumed with too many thoughts and I was miserable, and I wondered if I would ever get better. And after multiple rock bottoms, I was finally able to see my way out of this miserable lifestyle. But I didn't fully understand the real reason that I was miserable. I only half learned the lesson. So a year and a half later, I started struggling with depression and anxiety. I kept thinking to myself that once I reached certain goals, then I would be happy. But I would reach a goal and then I'd need to set another one. And I became obsessed with this process of needing to see another result. But whenever I wouldn't get a result, I would shame myself. I told myself, "Anna, you just need to have more grit and discipline, and then you'll be happy." I thought that my happiness was dependent by my ability to get my goals. I was lost, miserable. I lost all motivation because I was worried about disappointing myself. And I reached this point where I wondered if I would ever have hope. If you have ever been there before, I want you to know that there is hope. Hope came for me when I met with this neuro-wellness specialist in an 8-hour intensive session. So it was long, and my attention span is about 10 minutes. But somehow, 7.5 hours in, things were starting to click for me. I was taking all these notes. I was having all these realizations because for the first time, I was finally able to see what leads us to suffer and what leads us to thrive. And I realized that the reason I was miserable was because of this. I realized that the reason I was miserable was because I was following what I have heard it called as the formula or equation of misery, where we feel like we need to see a result to then be happy, and that results will lead us to our happiness. How many of you have ever told yourself something along the lines of, "Once I do blank, then I'll be happy"? Like, once I graduate, then I'll be happy. Once I get married, then I'll be fulfilled. Once I buy a house, pay off my car, have kids, get a raise, then I can finally relax. How many of you guys have been there before? Raise your hand if you have ever been there before and you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And for me, I would be happy for a moment when I got one of these goals. I would be ecstatic when I lost 10 pounds. But it wouldn't last. It would only last like a minute or an hour or a week at most, and then I had to set a new goal for myself to then be happy. It felt like I was running on this hamster wheel because I felt like I could never be done, and so therefore, I could never actually be happy. One of my favorite quotes goes, "Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure." How many of us achieve results and are successful, and yet we're not fulfilled in our lives? So, how do we find fulfillment? For me, it started with switching the equation. I learned in the 8-hour session that the reason I was miserable was because I was relying on results. And the way to be happy is to help ourselves see how happiness can lead us to get our results, in a way. It starts with that. And now I know that if I was told that the solution to my problems was to just be happier, that would have not been very effective, clearly. And so I'm not suggesting that we try harder to just be happier, but what I am suggesting is maybe we need to change our perspective and how we approach working towards our goals. Also, it's not about not having goals and dreams, but it's rather about not using misery as a form of motivation, and instead allowing ourselves to enjoy the journey so that we have a greater capacity to reach our goals. There was a study, or some research, at UC Berkeley that indicated when we are happier, we are more resilient, productive, creative, and better able to recall information. You may have all experienced the opposite of this. For example, you may have taken a test where you knew that you knew the answer, but all of a sudden when you needed the result, when you needed the answer, you couldn't think of it. But then, as soon as the test was over and you were done, you didn't need the result anymore, you were smart again. It's so frustrating. And there was also this study at the University of Kaiser where they found that when students were in a more positive emotional state when they went in to take a test, they received substantially higher test scores than those who went in to take a test with a negative emotional state. So what am I saying? I'm not saying, again, that we should just try harder to be happy. But what I am suggesting is that maybe stressing over and needing to see a certain result is getting in our way of creating what we want. How often do we do this in our lives where we need that certain result? For me, I learned how to switch the formula, and it helped me to see how powerful my life could be as soon as I let go of needing to see that result. There was this experiment done at the University of Florida that you may have heard of, where the professor divided his class up into 2 groups. And he told the first group that their entire grade would be dependent on the quality of one single photo that they turned in at the end of the term. He told the other group that their entire score would be dependent on the quantity of photos that they turned in. When the term ended, it was found that the highest quality photos came from the students who just focused on taking a bunch of photos, who didn't need that one perfect photo. So what do we learn from this? When we need to see a result to then be happy, sometimes we get in our own way, and we end up being less effective. But when we let go of that need, we end up enjoying the journey more and being more successful. This formula has applied to so many areas of my life. It helped me learn how to finally love myself. I go to the gym now, I take care of my health because I want to, not because I'm afraid of not being good enough. This formula has also helped me to love my appearance. Back when I was struggling, before I know what I know now, I had a friend suggest to me that I should try affirmations. So I did. I was willing to try anything, so I went into the bathroom, I looked into the mirror, and I kept repeating to myself, "Anna, you are beautiful. Anna, you are beautiful. Anna, you are beautiful." But then I started to cry. I didn't believe that I was beautiful. And in fact, because I needed that result, my brain started to focus on all the negative attributes that I had. I was so frustrated because I wanted to change my thoughts, but I didn't know how. And after that 8-hour session, something finally clicked for me. I realized that maybe the reason that affirmations didn't work for me were because I felt that I needed to see a result. I felt I needed to feel beautiful to then be happy. Because hear me out. What if our brains didn't actually care about if we were beautiful? Maybe, maybe not. But I realized that what if I helped myself see that even if I wasn't beautiful, things would be okay? So I went in and I asked myself, okay, worst case scenario, we're not beautiful. How is that okay? I helped myself see that I could strengthen my relationship still. I could still work on my goals and be passionate. I could still travel and do all these things and have a fulfilling life. And when I accepted the worst case scenario, this helped me to be happier. And when I was happier, guess what my brain finally started to focus on? My brain finally was able to focus on all the positive attributes that I had when I didn't need it. What if the secret to finally feeling beautiful was not needing to be? What if that was the secret to everything in life? Was just taking action, but not needing it to be? This formula has also transformed one of my friends' lives. She told me about how when she was younger, she struggled. She was diagnosed with a seizure disorder, and it kept her from doing a lot of the things that she wanted to do in her life, and it was really frustrating. So when she learned to switch this formula, she helped herself see, even if I do have seizures, how is that okay? And then she started to see these seizures as a superpower. And when she stopped fearing them and faced the worst case scenario, and by the way, these seizures were induced through stress. So when she faced her fear, she was no longer stressed, and then she stopped having them. The outcomes that we see from applying this formula are different for each person, but it increases our odds of being able to create what we want. It's so fascinating. After I saw the power of this formula, I decided to become a coach so that I can help other people. And over again, I will see with my clients that the one thing that keeps them from getting their goals is that they feel at some level they need to see a result. And over again, I will see that as they go into the worst case scenario, help themselves see that even if they don't get their goals, it's okay. That's when they're able to take more action and be more effective. People might be wondering, okay, but what about the situations where the outcome really, really matters? Like poverty, war, illness. Does this formula still apply? And I've heard it said this way, that putting a positive twist on something doesn't change the situation, but it changes you, and it gives you the power to deal with it. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, once said that when we can no longer change our situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And sometimes, when we make this shift in this mindset, we're able to find solutions and problems that we weren't able to see before. Not only has this shift helped me to be happier, but it's also helped me to dream bigger. When I was in that 8-hour session, I was asked the question, Anna, what is it that you want to do with your life? And I thought of multiple different things, and one thing that came to my mind is I thought I would love to be a public speaker 15, 20 years from now. I put it aside. And then he asked me, why not sooner? Why not 5? And then it hit me, how many of us put off our goals and dreams because we are worried about being disappointed in ourselves if we fail? And then I realized that if I stopped waiting to see a result to be happy, then I would enjoy the journey so much more. And if I enjoyed the journey so much more, then I would be fulfilled. And win or lose, my success would still be inevitable. Changing this formula has helped me see that maybe the universe is biased in my favor. And maybe life is happening for me, not to me. This has given me so much more confidence to take action. And it's been 3.5 years now since that session, not 5, and I've spoken at multiple events, given multiple trainings, and now I'm here at TEDx today. And I'm honored. I want to end with a visualization. I want you guys to picture this. I want you to picture what would life be like if you kept waiting to see a result to be happy, if you kept living by the formula of misery. How would that impact your relationship, your careers, your goals, etc.? And what would life look like in 1, 5, 10 years from now? Now I want you to picture this. What if you switched the formula and helped yourself face the worst case scenario? How would that help you in your relationships, your career, your goals? And what would life look like in 1, 5, 10 years from now? This one simple switch in my focus changed everything for me. One of my favorite quotes goes, "If your goals and outcomes define you, whether you get them or not, you will have a hollow life. If you keep waiting to see a result to be happy, you will spend your life doing just that. Stop waiting." Thank you.